And she said, well, I kind of dismantled, amongst other things, I've dismantled aspects of my technique and I'm kind of putting it back together right now. And I said, but you're the most successful and famous woman cricketer that we've ever had, and you just come off the back of winning multiple world championships. And she said, yeah. And what I do is I improve my technique, because right now I know that there will be captains and opposition teams around the world strategizing for what they're going to do when I come into bat. And next time I come back, actually I probably shouldn't be saying this, the word will get out there. You know, next time I come back, I will have more at my disposal. And I rarely hear leaders talking about their leadership technique and improving it. I don't know. I don't spend enough time around teachers to know how much teachers, after a while, talk about their technique and whether they're still pushing the boundaries, whether they're going to younger people to learn, because their assumption is that the younger people will be pushing those boundaries and they have something to learn from them. I wanted to mention that.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's time for me just to make a comment.
Please.
No, stay there, Chris, because actually it's such an important part, that because obviously the older we become, you know, things begin to feel different in our hands, or you know, just what we're wearing, or how the instruments develop. Don't forget, we don't yet have the Stradivarius marimba or the Steinway vibraphone or whatever fancy snare drum. We're still developing, and therefore I think it is absolutely crucial, no matter what we do, to completely and utterly, there is no thing as sort of step one, in a way, where it's always just reviewing, feeling what's happening with the body in relation to what we do.
Lovely.
Sorry, I've lost.
No.
I've ruined everything for you.
There's something else I wanted, in a way, which moves on from that, which is a kind of moving. Another thing I wanted to pick up, because it resonated with something from yesterday, which was a theme that I kept coming across, which is about not becoming a victim of the system. Because there's a lot of talk here, and quite rightly so, about policy, about what's going to happen in the next few months in the political arena, about what will and won't be possible, about the consequences of the economic crash and so on, and people wondering what are the new constraints or rules or forms or structures or whatever which may help or may not help. And I love this idea that, you know, this becomes my favourite instrument, or this becomes my favourite instrument. And yes, I don't know how you would characterise the last few years in education, but certainly in this sphere of education, as you said earlier with your clipometer, a lot of progress has been made. Things are going to be different. Things are already probably already different. You know, it will be really interesting to see what it's like to build the network, to move the work forward in this environment, where actually it's needed even more, and some of the needs that are out there will become even more apparent. Some of the fixes that you've got to some of the problems in communities, in schools, in society, are going to be needed now more than they ever were. So I love this idea of not becoming a hostage of, okay, what new rules are they going to make up? What funding cuts are they going to be? And how, you know, yes, you have to deal with that, but this idea that you press on and actually you don't take no for an answer in certain situations.
Absolutely, and I think also in what I find interesting, even in the development now, which is perhaps even more important, is this cross-fertilization, is crossing over to other aspects. I mean, I had a very interesting experience last evening in Hamburg, where I was giving a concert, and afterwards there was a group of children who wanted to attend the concert, and the reason for them being there was that they wanted to meet myself and my pianist afterwards so that they could improve their English, but meanwhile do it through going to a percussion concert, which doesn't happen every day, and meanwhile also they had viewed the film Touch the Sound, which is all about a sound journey. So they had already done their homework beforehand. They had ventured into a beautiful concert hall. They had seen a concert. Meanwhile, we then met with each other afterwards. They got that opportunity to improve their English. They had prepared their questions and so on. And also it was a form of motivation for them, because these were not music students as such. These were school children. So they were ticking so many boxes by being at that one venue. And it was a really exciting, experience for me, and it's exactly what I believe in. So I could have been a sports person, I could have been, I don't know what or who, but it was the fact that they were trying to squeeze as much out of this particular event as they possibly could. And that, I think, was important.
Which brings us beautifully back to the rather outrageous hope that I expressed at the beginning of today, which is that there may be some practical outcomes from today. May I hope, already be some practical things that you're thinking, yeah, I could use that in what I do. But I just want to up the odds a bit of us being able to do that by coming to another thing which you talked about, which is focus. Tim, could you take the lights up a bit? I'm just going to ask you to do a little drill. And I'm going to do it in one way, which is actually visually, and then I think we'll come back to some more sound with you, Evelyn. So, in a way, this is a bit like, I had a wonderful view from there of the tips of the sticks just hovering over the marimba when you said, listen to this. And we were actually leaning into the sound of, well, not silence, but as you say, the fans and all that sort of stuff. And there was a sense of gathering and focusing. What I'm going to ask you to do is a bit like, you don't have to get up for this, but a bit like what you said you did when you walked into this room, Evelyn. I'd like you, just as you're sitting there, just to let your eyes wander until they find something interesting. So it might be the colour of the person in front of your's jacket or dress or something. They won't mind. They won't know that you're looking at them. It might be a rig or a wall or a chair. But just what I'd like you to do is to just let your eyes settle on something. And as you settle on it, get curious about it and really start looking at that thing. It can be close to you, it can be far away, as long as you can see it. Really want you to get close to it and look at it and really study it with curiosity and see what you see. So a couple of things about this, and we're going to move on in a moment. But one is that in a familiar environment, going out and just really looking at some things and really sitting and looking and watching can really be helpful. You learn a lot, you find a lot. There's a lot that we normally cut out. Did a little exercise in my mini keynote yesterday where we talked about things that people cut out. But the other aspect of it is that as you looked at that thing, I imagine for lots of you, you lost a lot of other stuff. So as you narrow in on that person's jacket or dress, then what happens is your world becomes very narrow, which can be useful. But as a leader, there's a really important skill, I think. And one of the things which happened in the panel discussion that I was in yesterday was Lucy from Sky was talking about an experience they'd had where they were trying to take more risks, which is something lots of people will have to do to be innovative. And they were saying, but one of the problems is that we noticed that in encouraging people to take risks, we kept bumping into the lack of a skill. And the skill was giving feedback well. Because when people took risks and failed, they tended to get steamrolled by the feedback. So we've really had to look at how we develop that skill. For leaders, I think there's a real skill which is being able to focus on something and focus on the bigger picture. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is just actually not to look at the thing you were looking at, but just look around at everything else. Maybe take a deep breath and just look around and try. It's weird when some guy on the stage is asking you to do strange stuff, but just try and relax a bit. And then when you're ready, your task is to bring your attention back to the thing that you were looking at earlier, but still to hold on to, not to let go of, what you can see more widely. And see if it's possible both to be looking at that thing and seeing it, and not to have such narrow vision. Has anyone actually felt that difference? Managed to feel that difference between narrow vision, broad vision? I'm seeing some nods, some hands. I mean, to me, this is a real skill. And when your task is to brag and to get out there, the capacity to focus on what's in front of you and to focus on the broader environment and allow them to feed in and out of each other, I think becomes very important. As a leader in general, as I'm sure, and this is teaching grandparents to suck eggs, the capacity to focus on a young person and to be thinking about the needs of the other, if you're lucky, 27, if you're not many more than that, to me becomes a very important skill, or as a coach or whatever. So that's one little drill. Let's move back to the realm of sound, Evelyn, and see if we can go somewhere with that.
Absolutely. I mean, what's interesting about what you've just said is, you know, I love this idea of truly focusing on something. It's like focusing on an actual sound that's being fed through an instrument, but certainly being completely aware of how that fits in to the environment. And one of the things, from my perspective, what I do as a musician, if I'm playing a